Hey everybody, it's the Dark Guardsman. We're back in another video. Now, recently I've been working on both Atomic Science and ICBM again. So ICBM has got a new block I'll be showing off here towards the end of it, but for starting, since I have to wait for the client to launch, which takes a bit of time for the ICBM client, we're going to go ahead and look at the Atomic Science one here and show off some changes I made recently. So those who haven't been following along, I've been working on the radiation system for Atomic Science in order to give a somewhat realistic feel to the mod, and rather than just having this generic radiation that just spawns off of things and hits you, I've made implementations to build a map-based system that will actually store the radioactive material per block and actually generate effects based off of that value. Now with this, we actually can track the amount of radiation and actually generate a map of the exposure values. So that way, when I actually do walk around, which I've showed off in previous videos, the radiation value up on the top will actually change based on how far or close I get to the radiation source. And the radiation source is right here, and you can see how high it gets and everything else. Now with this allows us to give a really cool different gameplay mechanic where, depending on the distance, of course, the radiation decays, but it also allows us to make shielding and also to calculate different things. Now based on even the height alone, because how this actually does work, if I can go in the third person mode, is it will actually calculate radiation on my head, midsection, and foot level, and average those out, so that way you end up with different values. The reason why, if you do jump, it doesn't change dramatically, but as you get like really close to the source, you can get huge different shift in the value. Really cool gameplay, but that's not what I really want to talk about. It's just more of a refresher of what we're going on about. The changes that have been made are a few minor changes to how the map system does work, which is hard for me to show, but we fixed a few dozen bugs, and it kind of worked on the radiation value and got it scaled a little bit better. Additionally, the remove timer actually does work now. It's with the number 49 is up there. It's not currently ticking because I'm still being exposed to radiation actively. As long as you're not being exposed to radiation, and let's try to walk away here, the remove timer will start to tick up. And right now it's only going to show you every 20 ticks because that's how the network code is designed, to send an update packet every 1 second. But once this hits about 5 minutes, it's going to remove about 5% of the radiation, which we're not going to sit here for a full 5 minutes and show that off. But it would remove 5% of the radiation and actually slowly decay down. This try to simulate killing is what that's meant to do. So radiation will decay and be reduced. That's one of the features that's been added. The other feature is that the collars up at the top will change color as you move around. I think you've already probably saw that. As I get closer to radiation source, it starts to get a little more red and everything else. This is to help indicate how close to danger you're actually getting. Now the rad value will change closer to red the closer you get to being exposed to a radiation level that will kill you within 1 minute. So as we get closer to red, and that's about, if you take 1,000 divided by 60. So as it tries to calculate 1 second. So if you get about 16 rads is where you start getting in the range, that's when you will die within 1 minute. So we can actually mess around with this value here and set this even higher. So you see it start to get really, really high, so it's about a bright red there. If I go up another value, it'll go to a really high value, which I think I just overflowed. There it goes. So it gets to about pure 20. You're basically, if I took my armor off, and we can show this off really quickly, you look in the top corner here, I will start to take a ridiculous amount of radiation exposure, and more or less my character will fall over dead in a very short period of time, is what that rad 20 is actually meant to simulate. Bit of a coloration problem also with this. I think I have to do some cleanup here later and actually fix the coloration, because you notice how the bottom one's getting green while the top one's getting darker. I think that is a bit of a flaw with the render code that is actually happening. But the top bar will actually get closer to red as you get closer to death. 1,000 is the death point. Once you hit 1,000, your character will fall over dead. It's meant to simulate organ failure, in which all the organs, including your brain, just can no longer function because they've taken so much damage, and you just fall over. Gets to about 1,000. Now, of course, my character will not actually fall over dead. One, the code's not actually implemented to simulate any of the effects at the moment, and two, I'm in creative mode, so really, realistically, I shouldn't be taking radiation damage to start with. But this will keep increasing, and it keeps going up. You can see how quickly those numbers are spinning across, just to simulate how much radiation you're taking. But of course, also, if you go a little distance further away, you can see the numbers do decrease. Those show the system is actually working. So that's what I want to show off for Atomic Science. About all I got. Once we get this radiation system kind of sorted out, where it's actually working appropriately, which I'm almost there, I'm going to flip over to working on the reactor, which will be the next thing that actually gets done, or the processing machine. I think I'll pick between them, and I'll show you off whatever I get done. So that's done right there, so we'll go ahead and pause that, and we'll flip over to the other thing. So the other thing I've been working on is on ICBM. So we had a person donate to us a model, and let me open this up. So we have Starseeker here. He made us a really nice, basically, silo hatch is what he made us. Really cool looking. I've already showed off pictures of it implemented, so you guys see half that. I'll show you in game. What I am scrolling up to find really quickly is there should be a video here. So we got a video of the actual hatch and animation. It does have pistons and everything. I want to point this out simply because the mod I'm going to show you in game doesn't actually have the pistons, but it does animate and everything else. And there's also another version, if I can go ahead and download this and show this off. And there's a version of how it's supposed to look when it animates. Really nice, cool little impression. This is kind of what we're going for, is a nice silo missile door that gives you that much better impression of what's going on, so you're not just using pistons. Although pistons are fully valid, and we do plan to add a large variety of different doors to work with, including blocks to simulate doors. That way, if you want to use things like sticky pistons just to push blocks around and make your own doors, that will be something we'll implement. And we'll make those generic so you can use them as just blast doors or anything else you want to use, or we'll add a high resistance to them explosion-wise and everything else. We'll go ahead and get in game and show you off the animation. Now this is pretty early implemented. I've only spent a couple hours today actually working on this. Very simple blocks, and they're still animating down. I actually saved the state with them actually it's still in animation. But they've got a simple animation, a simple model. I still do plan to implement code to actually fill in this, which is going to be really easy. I'm going to use an ISBR, which is just a fancy way of saying like a static block render system. It's actually not what it stands for. It's like Special Block Render Handler, I think is what it actually stands for. But you can use that and actually fill this in by creating essentially micro block system. Let's go ahead and get an example of this. So like the stairs here, they're actually implemented via several collision boxes. I could create an ISBR that does something like this, but it's on its side, so you can get this filled in and it would look really nice. Same thing right here, just a little bit of a lip so you get an extra thing. I do plan to make that customizable, so you'll be able to pick what blocks those actually do render as. And they should render exactly the same as normal blocks, because we're going to use the code we use for the camo block and military base Degorian ICBM Classic, which both have that nice camo block in there, which can look like any block. So that'll be a feature, that'll be something you open up on the GUI. The GUI we do plan to actually implement for this for customization will also feature ability to change how the door opens, how quickly it opens, different little bits and pieces there to kind of give you your own custom feel of how you want to do things. How the door will eventually open is it will be done via redstone. So you will actually control it via redstone, it will open. We will be making an external block that you can link to the door and link to the silo to control to make sure that the silo door does open in time for the silo, and that you don't have to spend a huge amount of time building special redstone contraptions and hoping that they work correctly, so that way your missile doesn't actually blow up. We'll probably also build in some safety mechanisms to make sure the door is actually open, so that way when the missile does go to launch, it will not launch if the door is not open, and various other things. As for how to open the door at the moment, because we don't have redstone actually implemented, you could just right click with a redstone and it will open. Gives you that nice animation, just mainly there for testing. I am going to leave the code in there so you can have a little bit of fun with it. And use this for whatever you want. Because after all, even though this is really meant for the silo, you can actually probably use this as an escape hatch or anything else you want to use it for. A few people have already asked about it being turned into an escape hatch. That probably will not happen. What will end up happening is we'll make blocks very similar looking to this, and we'll put them in military base decor that actually do have ladders in them and can be used as escape hatches and everything else. As for collision, right now the door does not actually have a collision box on it. That will be solved. I'm looking into two possibilities for that one. One, we could just put blocks right there, which will be the cheap way of doing it. The other option is I'm thinking about making an entity that does eventually change, so that way you have a nice collision box here. So that way you get a nice full collision box. It won't be too hard to actually implement and just take a little bit of time in math. With being able to drop down this will be very simple. We'll just go is open and you can just drop right down in through it. The same thing will go for the missiles. It'll just remove the collision box so that way you can go through that. So that's about it what I show you guys, and hopefully I'll come back here with some more content and different features and stuff to show you. And I definitely want to be able to come back here later with a nice animation of this fully working from start to finish.